Hi everyone, Dr. Shook here. I hope you're doing well today. In today's video, what I want to talk to you about is a very important topic, and that is Alzheimer's disease. Now, if you don't know this already, if you haven't seen any of my other videos, then this will be a great introduction to one of the subtypes of Alzheimer's that have been identified. There have actually been 6 subtypes identified and 36 driving factors, okay? Now, you may have never heard any of this information. That's because the research on this that has been published is rather new. It's maybe 5 or 10 years old, but within the last 5 years, we've had some good peer-reviewed research that's been published on actually slowing, halting, and reversing Alzheimer's. There's research that we're going to talk about here because we're going to talk about the particular subtype of Alzheimer's. There are 6 subtypes that have been identified, as I said. We're going to talk about type 3 right now. Now, type 3 Alzheimer's disease is toxic or inhalation-based Alzheimer's. The published research was published in Aging, the journal, in 2016. And the thing about this is that they found that this was as the result of exposure to specific toxins that trigger SIRS, or a chronic inflammatory response within the body. This chronic inflammatory response, what it does is the inflammatory process affects a molecular switch on your nerve cells. Now, this molecular switch is the APP. The APP stands for amyloid precursor protein. Amyloid precursor protein. Now, the amyloid precursor protein, when you have any of these 36 driving factors present in the body, you flip that switch in a way that contributes to beta amyloid formation, neurofibrillary tangles, dendrite retraction, loss of neuron density. Those are all of the characteristics seen on MRI of people with Alzheimer's. That leads to the symptomatic presentation, the loss of memory, and all the negative consequences that we see with that process. So this molecular switch and understanding what trips it in a very negative way is critical for our ability to help people with cognitive decline and Alzheimer's work to reverse engineer that process, right? I hope that makes sense. So this is something, though, that is a huge opportunity, a huge opportunity, because if we can identify toxic exposure, it's primarily inhalation based from biotoxins and mycotoxins, mold, then this is a huge opportunity for us to help people, right? To help people right now that are probably suffering from this particular type of cognitive decline simply because of the home that they live in or the building that they work in. So about 25% of the buildings in the United States are water damaged. That's all buildings. Okay, so that's a huge amount. And about 1 in every 4 people have a genetic susceptibility to something called SIRS, or a chronic inflammatory response when they're exposed to mold. So genetically, they're going to be predisposed to this chronic response that's going to drive inflammation, trip that amyloid precursor protein, and lead to all the negative consequences associated with cognitive decline and Alzheimer's. So if we can identify, and we can do testing to see if this chronic inflammatory response is ongoing. We can measure and see if you're reacting to molds or mycotoxins. We can do that through blood testing. Then we can really work to reverse engineer and help a lot of people. Now, we can also do an EMA test. Okay, EMA, you can look this up. An EMA test, if you go to real-time laboratories, an EMA test is a test where they'll send you a kit. You collect a sample of your, you can collect dust from around the house, under the refrigerator, on top of a ceiling fan blade. Part of a great place to do it, if you can, is to get an old or one of your air filters that you've been using for a little while. Take it out of, if you have central air, and cut a piece out and send that. But they'll tell you where you can collect samples, and then you send that into the lab, and they will assess it using PCR technology, which is a DNA-based technology to look at specifically what type of molds or mycotoxins are in your environment. They can tell you what's there. Now, obviously, if you have something in your environment, you need to get it remediated. That is separate from you. There's several different tests that can be done immunologically to look and see if the immune response is occurring, but also, urinary testing to see if you do have mold that you're being exposed to. What types do you have? Because certain types are much worse than others. So there's a process you go through to figure this out, but this is a huge opportunity for us, to really help a lot of people that have inhalation-based Alzheimer's. This is published. Just go to Aging 2016, type in inhalation Alzheimer's in Google. You probably find it pretty easy. But a lot of doctors have no idea about this, no idea. And it's very, very important. So we're looking at toxic, which when we're talking about this, really in the context of SEERs and mycotoxins, I think is the greatest opportunity for us to help people quickly. But also under this toxic umbrella, you have to consider a few other things. There's two other things that we want to talk about here. So here's one and here's two. Okay, so number one, we want to talk about stress, because chronic stress or long-term stress raises cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. When cortisol levels are elevated, some very negative things happen, like it is neurotoxic, okay? Neurotoxic, neuro meaning neuron, brain cell toxic. We know that elevated cortisol for a prolonged period of time creates loss of neurons in the hippocampus. It's a central structure in your brain that's responsible for learning, short-term memory. And if you have high cortisol, you'll lose those neurons rapidly, and it can create major problems for you. So people that are under chronic stress, they going through something that's a prolonged, drawn out process that's very, very stressful, they're very susceptible here, very susceptible. There's a lot of things that could be done for these people too, by the way. Like even if it were, considering taking adrenal gland adaptogens, your adrenal glands make cortisol. So you can take things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylserine is a supplement that's been shown to be very, very helpful here at improving the neuron density, protecting the neurons. It's incredibly beneficial. So those may be things that someone could use. I mean, obviously addressing the source of the stress is ideal, but sometimes we don't have that option. So there's several things that can be done here. This is what we help people with, like figuring out, looking at this landscape and these problems that they're faced with that are contributing to cognitive decline and helping them formulate a strategy. Right? Address the most important things first, use diet, lifestyle, nutrition, everything that we can to help them naturally to unwind these problems. Now, number two, the second thing under toxic, metals and chemicals, so heavy metals, mercury, lead, cadmium, cobalt, nickel, lots of different types of metals, chemicals in the environment. Listen, guys, there are 85,000 environmental, or I should say 85,000 in industrial and agricultural chemicals that we are being exposed to every single day. 85,000. They are in our food, water, air. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. I mean, you think about, like I've got this shirt on. This is a wrinkle-free shirt, right? So it doesn't wrinkle very easily. It keeps these nice little pleats in it. You know how they do that? It's a chemical. It's a chemical, right? It's a chemical, and you absorb that through your skin. So it's very important to understand that the fabrics that we use, I mean, everything, the paints, everything. You think about this for a second. Why do we have such an explosion of disease? Why do we have such an explosion of Alzheimer's? Right? There are a lot of environmental factors that come into play. So you can have immune reactivity to these chemicals and metals. We can actually measure antibodies to these chemicals and metals and see what's happening and what types of problems are actually occurring as a result of this. And this can drive an inflammatory process is what it comes down to. Metals and chemicals are also toxic to the body in other ways. They're endocrine disruptors. They disrupt hormonal signaling and function, which is very, very important to the brain as well. So it's important to understand something. Alzheimer's disease is multifactorial. Multifactorial, meaning there's a lot of different causes to it. So you cannot treat everyone the same. There is uniqueness to the problem. Bio-individuality is critical. So you got to understand there's 6 subtypes and there are 36 different drivers. Understanding what those unique factors are for someone that's at risk for Alzheimer's, like if you have a family member or if you know you have a genetic variant, the APOE variant, APOE4 variant, then you are at a greater likelihood of developing Alzheimer's. And you should be looking at these things before symptoms ever develop. A lot of people are being proactive. They're getting a cognoscopy, which is something we assist people with, where we look at their health history, we look at their risk factors, we do testing to help them understand where they are, what factors are present that would promote cognitive decline. So we've got to look at this, and we've got to address it before it becomes a bigger problem. And if you're already dealing with these issues, then we absolutely have to look at what's driving the cognitive decline so we can work to reverse engineer it and unwind this process. The approach that we take is a science-based approach that uses repeatable testing. So the first step that we take when I work with people, and I work with people around the world, we do distance consulting, I work with people across the world, I've worked with people in 10 or 15 different countries. We work with people across the U.S. I've worked with people in every state, and we work with them. We just work with them via distance consulting. So we still do very in-depth, detailed health history, data gathering. We look at everything that's going on, and then we have an appointment with them. Usually we have an hour-long appointment with a follow-up appointment to determine what to do, but we have an hour-long appointment to really dig into their health history, figure out risk factors. Then based on that data, we will formulate a testing strategy to help the person figure out like what kind of testing do we need to consider doing to identify their risk, these 36 different subtypes. And then once we've done that, what we want to do is we want to formulate a very specific plan based on those test results. So we first detect the problems. What are your risk factors? What are the 36 factors promoting cognitive decline? The second thing that we want to do is once we have that data, we want to remove and replenish. So it's R, detect, remove, and replenish. So if you have factors like this, like a toxic exposure, we want to remove that, and we want to replenish the tissues. We want to replenish vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and those things. And then once we've done that, we want to repair. Okay, so then we focus on the third step, which is repair. And the repair process means we want to start optimizing the healing process and optimizing your neurological signaling and your brain health. So that's where we actually work on doing things like a lot of people, they want to start here before they detect, before they remove anything. They don't start with a plan. They just say, you know what, I'm going to take a bunch of vitamins. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to basically use nootropics, use different types of supplements that are supposed to help your brain health. Well, you're going to waste time, you're going to waste money, and you're going to be kind of, let's say, well, you're going to be wasting time and money. Let's just say that. All of my examples there, my analogies are not appropriate. So detect, remove, replenish, and repair. Detect, remove, repair is a great strategy that we use. So if you need guided assistance putting all this together, you can go to new.alzconsult.com and you can learn all about working with us in our Saving the Brain program. If you want to try some things on your own, there are actually 3 steps that you can take. There are 3 things you can do that are trial and error. And these are, number 1, a ketogenic diet. Okay, so ketogenic diet's great. Number 2, you can follow intermittent fasting. Okay, so intermittent fasting, it's a way that you can do time restricted eating, which is very, very helpful. And then you can take vitamins and minerals because a lot of people are deficient in vitamins and minerals. So all of these things will help you out. They'll help you figure out and help you address many of the common factors that contribute to cognitive decline. So if you have any questions or you need anything, if you're interested in getting our assistance, you can just visit our website, but just reach out to us. We will do everything that we can to help you. And I appreciate you spending this time with me today. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Look forward to talking